Morning, y'all. It's Tris, wishing you peace and bliss in this anti-queer apocalypse. So, we're going to be filming the podcast today, and one of the questions is: are kids still facing bullying like they used to before? And even one of the people in the group chat was like, "Duh," but I saw a story on Twitter recently that, again, my roommate put me onto, that really highlights just like how dangerous bullying is today for children, and just like with everything else that's going politically, just the dangers put in kids. So I don't know if you guys have heard the story of Chad Sanford, but there's a little video on Twitter that I think you should watch, and we'll discuss it real quick. My little phone, don't laugh at me.
14-year-old Chad Sanford got invited to hang out by a group of young people Chad thought were friends.
And they came out and jumped.
What did they tell you as they were meeting?
Don't come around with it.
You may remember, Chad, it was just over a year ago when Chad was beaten and body slammed. His classmates yelled homophobic slurs. It happened at Deerfield Middle, where Chad used to go to school. This is what Chad told us days after the attack last year.
It's sad because I went for suicide.
Just let him live his life. Just let Chad be Chad.
Chad's grandmother, who asked us to protect her identity, says the past year hasn't been easy.
Guys were spitting on him on the bus and treating him any kind of way because of his transgender in life or what he want to be. I'm just frustrated.
She said locals have used this video.
They would hit Chad the wrong way and something would have happened to Chad. What else supposed to do?
Difficult to watch because she says it could have been so much worse.
It could have.
Chad and the entire family, they're convinced that Chad was targeted because of being LGBT. Chad's grandmother tells me she called VSO to report what happened. We are in contact with VSO to find out exactly what is the latest on the investigation. Live in Pompano Beach, I'm Prosciutto.
So you gotta love the way the news reports that, because they're like, oh, they're convinced it's because, LGBT. It's like, they said literally that they were saying, fuck away from us with that gay shit. And even in the comments of this Twitter thread, there are people saying all kinds of wild shit, which is sad. I'll read out some of them just to get the point across how we're being complicit in our own oppression right now. Let's see. No Bati boys in Pomona Beach, you heard? This looks like a grown-ass man in this joint. He must have did or said something that he ain't telling the cameras police. Like what? Either way, it's wrong, but I just can't up and believe this happened for no reason or solely because of his sexuality. Because people don't just be getting jumped for foolishness all the time. Like, what do you think he did? And if they wanted to defend themselves, I'm sure they would have came out by now and talked about, oh yeah, he did this, that, and the other. Like, you know how people love, like, proving why they gave their licks. For all we know, because he said these were people he thought was friends. So for all we know, they either were planning to target him for quite some time and like pretend to befriend him and all that just to gain his trust and make it easy to set him up. Or they were feeling the pressure from other people like, we don't start jumping you because we question you unless you're willing to jump him. But what did he do? Just live his life, apparently. Or just live their life. Let me not even assume things like that. But even though I don't support the LGBT community, they are human too. We are all human and all deserve respect at the end of the day. True, but let's let's hope for a little bit more progress in that. This guy wants to join the rainbow community, but they knocked the rainbow out of his eyes. And listen, like someone I follow who's an amazing creator, FD Signifier said in like their video on bug breaking and on the supposed gay agenda, which I'm gonna link in the description below. Like, it's not that the black community is more homophobic than any other American community, because at the end of the day, all this stuff goes back to white, supremacy and patriarchy anyway. But it's quite clear through history that, like, when, like, your humanity is taken away from you, and, what you feel is your manhood is taken away from you, and, like, exploitable by your oppressors in any kind of way that they want, there is that generational trauma and curse of trying to reaffirm manhood, trying to, prove how, masculine you really are. And we see it play out in all types of ways, from relationships to, interpersonal violence to, what Chad and so many others suffer. And like Chad said, they were at the point of feeling suicidal, because from what I've seen so far, the police haven't done anything to help. And this is happening in Texas. I believe it's called Deerfield Beach, a community in Houston, Texas. And there's an article that says, as Texas moves to treat gender-affirming care for trans kids as child abuse, families and advocates worry about the future. That points out how this is going to get even worse. So, for months last year, transgender advocates in Texas fought a group of bills in the legislature seeking to ban transition care by arresting parents and delicensing doctors who provide transition care to children. Several of those bills died, but the ordeal scarred Hernandez, the mother of a 17-year-old transgender boy in Houston. Last week, those fears resurfaced. Attorney General Ken Paxton issued an opinion that defined providing access to certain gender-affirming treatment as child abuse, leaving some parents worried about the safety of their families, some advocates concerned about the well-being of trans kids in Texas. And scrolling down. In the non-binding opinion, Paxton classified gender reassignment surgery, which is rare for kids, as abuse under Texas law. He also did the same for puberty blockers, testosterone, and estrogen treatments, which are more common, less invasive, and often reversible. There is no doubt that these procedures are abuse under Texas law and thus must be halted, Paxton wrote in a statement accompanying the opinion. 3 days, the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services has a responsibility to act accordingly. Do everything I can to protect against those who take advantage of and harm Texans. By no one's just trying, this is the thing, we act like there's a pandemic or epidemic of people forcing these drugs on kids to design or baby whatever gender they wanted their kids to be. That's not reality. These are kids who've grown up and have some agency and saying, this is how I want to live, this is how I want to present, and this is how I'll feel comfortable surviving. And if not, it's going to drive me to the point of self-harm and worse. And Texas and other states are just yeah, all right, cool. Drive that bus on down that road. It says, let's see. There's also an open question of whether schools will be a safe space for trans kids. In the letter, Abbott, Texas governor, said licensed professionals like teachers are mandatory reporters of child abuse. Jackie Anderson, the president of Houston Federation of Teachers, the union representing Houston ISD's teachers, said his interpretation of child abuse is disruptive to the education of students. We are supposed to snitch on parents who are seeking medical and emotional assistance for their kids, Anderson said in an email. Really? And Houston ISD did not respond to questions about whether the district is expecting teachers to report transgender students and their families to the authorities. However, in a statement, Superintendent Millard House II said it's the responsibility of our district to protect all the students, including our transgender students. But are you actually going to protect them, or are you protecting them against their actual gender diversity for the sake of, patriarchal gender roles? And this is the thing, like, we gotta stop being useful agents for our own oppression. Like, there's a fascist movement coming. It's already been here. America's founded on fascism. That's what white supremacy and racism is all about, and anti-black is all about. But there's more encroaching fascism coming. You see the laws, and they're targeting the LGBT community first. But as they take resources, like they already did with Roe vs. Wade, took a bunch of resources and rights away from women. And they even did it to white women. Do you think they won't do that to us? Do you think they don't want to go back to the good old Jim Crow, to the good old Black Code days? Like, and you say, oh, that can happen. Again, if they can take away reproductive rights from women, what's to stop them from, like, they were already attacking critical race theory. And they already had all these things against, like, striking down voting rights and making it harder for people, especially people of color and black people, to vote. What is to stop them? And in the meantime, while they're pulling away resources, pulling away access to opportunities, and pulling away care that people generally need, where we're fighting each other to prove our manhood and to basically force people back into a box of be manly or die, essentially. And it might not be a church camp doing it, but it's essentially these type of beatings, these type of attacks, this type of harassment, this type of bullying is essentially, I'm trying to remember the word for it, conversion therapy. It's just enforced by the community instead of like the family and the state. And it's all working together, so it is still by the state regardless. So we gotta stop being so pressed about these things that don't even affect us, but just make us worry about what our kids are going to question is all right, and make us question what is all right, and stop trying to strive for the sake of almost like hegemonic, almost religious normalcy, because like people need to be people. People need to be free. America's supposed to be land of free, and clearly we don't really feel that way if we want or feel no type of ways about children being beaten for representing different and wanting to live different from what we think should be the norm. So it's sad to me. Yes, kids are still being bullied. I wish Chad the best. I didn't see any links for supporting them thus far. But if you know someone who is, or not even, just treat each other with, love and respect. And reevaluate if you're like, well, like that one comment, like, well, I don't even support the LGBT community, but, we're all human. We all deserve respect. That's a start, but like, let's support the community because what are they doing to you? Their freedom helps ensure your freedom. Them being respected ensures your respect. Their rights ensure your human rights. So if you don't want fascism, take that away. Let's support each other, all right? All right, this video's been long enough. I love y'all. Please, peace and love in this apocalypse, all right? Share that bliss.